The greatest power you possess is your ability to choose. Join Lowe's Moore as he reveals how you can begin to maximize that power by exploring yourself on the deepest levels and committing to making lasting and positive changes. Get ready to achieve breakthroughs that will lead to accelerated growth and transformation, because you are now tuned in to The Blueprint.
Why the actions contradict the lamb. I'm fellowshipping when I'm with the fam. That's more relations, that's forming a phonic.
Good evening and welcome back to The Blueprint. Of course, you know, I'm Lowe's Moore, and I'm excited again to be back with you for another Sunday evening. This is awesome. I don't know about you, but we celebrated. I'm going to say it right from the front. We celebrated my youngest son, Isaiah. We celebrated his birthday. He turned 28 years old. I mean, it was awesome yesterday, and we were able to spend some time with them. It's not finished yet because, he had some requests of us. That's Isaiah right there. He had some requests of us, that he wanted to see, certain movies. He wanted to see the Meg movie on yesterday. And, tonight he wants to see Indiana Jones. So we, whatever his desire is, that's what we're trying to meet. We got to sing happy birthday on yesterday. Family got together. It was just awesome, man. It was an awesome time. And enjoyed it tremendously. Celebrating Isaiah. I'm looking forward to another season. As he goes back to college, returns to college, and he's playing wheelchair basketball. I think it's the Cooney or Scooney, whatever it is, down in Queens College. Man, he's gonna be playing wheelchair college basketball. I think for his third year, he's gonna be playing. I'm looking forward to it. Going to the games and checking him out. I'm looking forward to him graduating, man, doing some amazing stuff. So Isaiah, I want to say happy birthday to you. And then quickly, I want to, just kind of talk. That's my man right there, my hangout partner. So want to talk to you a little bit about, just quickly. I got to say this quickly because when I retired from the Boys and Girls Club, now a little over 4 years, I retired from the club. The January before the pandemic got real crazy, I think it was 2019, September of 2019. I didn't know I was going to be retiring, but, I was doing some research for the kids at the Boys and Girls Club, and I was trying to get them to do a vision board. And I was thinking like, hey, but I need to do one for myself. See, one of the things is God says that if a people or a person without a vision will perish, right? And so I started asking myself some questions in 2019. Was I going to retire at the Boys and Girls Club? And then when was that? And if I wasn't, what was I going to do, right? So I started making a list of what my skills were. What was I good at? If I couldn't be the executive director or the executive director of development, it's almost the same thing. I had to ask myself a question after I finished playing professional basketball for 8 years. What are you going to do when you finish playing? And many people get stuck. I mean, we know how to get in the plane, take off. We know how to fly the plane, but sometimes we just don't know how to land the plane. Right. So I was just trying to figure out how to land the plane, because so many times we get stuck. Right. We get stuck and what we're doing and we're not used to change. So like basketball, I had to make a decision what I was going to do next, went into coaching, and eventually I ended up as the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club in Mount Vernon. Then I realized that I wasn't going to really retire there, that I had so much more I would like to do. And since I graduated in communications, public relations, I decided that, hey, man, I'm a pretty decent speaker. I got a lot of experience. I have a lot of information, right? I would like to help develop people. I would like to help coach people. I would like to help developing organizations and so I just start thinking about those things. How can I motivate people? Can I be a motivational speaker? Can I be a consultant? And how do I help? And I learned a lot in my 27 years at the Boys and Girls Club, because I started from the ground floor and had to work my way up. Right. And so I had to learn about youth development, what that really meant. I had to learn about what board development it was, and what was human resources, what was financial, ethics. How do you manage your finances at the Boys and Girls Club? Facility management. So many wonderful things I learned at the Boys and Girls. Technology came along. We went from no technology, just a computer on the desk, to having technology throughout the Boys and Girls Club. So I had so much I learned over the years, and again, it wasn't a part of my education. And so I had to learn what it was to be not an entrepreneur, but to be an executive director, and how to run an organization. So for me, I was like, wow, man, maybe I could help people, who are trying to do non-for-profit or youth development, or be better as an athlete. Maybe I can help in some way. Maybe I can be a life coach or sports coach, or motivate people. And so I created, and this is a part of it. The Blueprint podcast is a part of Lowesmore Global Communication. So so check this out. I think I got a little flyer there that says Lowesmore Global Communications. And I just wanted to share this with you tonight. Lowesmore Global Communication is about effective communication, personal growth, and practical application for development. To help, personal and organizational growth. Right. I want to help people grow. Right. And so a part of that, I'm hoping that this fall or later on in a few months, that Lowesmore Global Communication will do a very special project called The Overview of Youth Development. And me and a friend of mine, Anthony Johnson, another Boys and Girls Club guy, who loves programming, who loves strategic planning. So we're trying to develop an online interactive discussion around fundamentals of board development, servant leadership, facility management, just a bunch of different things. And so I just want to throw that out there. I didn't know if anybody needed help with that, needed support with that, needed to have a conversation about those things. But I created Lowesmore Global Communication. I'm going to be, hopefully, I'm trying to work on getting out on tour, in Boys and Girls Clubs, with my book, and hopefully in the new year. So yeah, just a lot of exciting things. Let me say this finally, because you're getting older, right? It doesn't mean that you dream less, right? I always believe, man, as we get older, we need to dream more, right? We can't just sit down and just kind of disappear, right? But that's what gives us energy when we dream. That's what gives us energy when we get excited about a project or something that we're trying to accomplish, right? So never stop dreaming, right? Never stop coming up with ideas, right? Because you can't there's no age. There are people in their 90s still graduating from college, man. There's people in 90s still coming up with ideas, entrepreneurship situations, so you're never too old to dream. You're never too old to start a business, right? Because you never know what assignment God has for you. I can say this, that God's assignment has no age to it, regardless of, his assignment can at any age it can get completed, right? You can just think about the famous people of the Bible. You can think about Abraham, you can think about Moses, you can think about their assignments did not end because they got older, right? So I just wanted to say that out to start out, right? If you need my help or my support, hey, look me up. I think at the bottom of the thing, I put down there my email, lowesmore@gmail.com. Right. Yep. Right at lowesmore@gmail.com. Right at the bottom there. If you need a motivational speaker, somebody do some consulting work or something like that, hit me up. So let's move forward. Don't forget, I want to say thank you for your support each and every week. And don't forget to like me on Facebook, like me on YouTube, Lowe's More the Blueprint, right? And to subscribe on YouTube, right? Don't forget to do that for me. Thank you. And so let's jump right into this. I'm gonna drop my pebble in the pond, right? Because I'm expecting a ripple effect of the show tonight. See, I just dropped it in the pond, right? And I'm expecting my pebble in the pond, expecting the ripple effect tonight. So let's get rolling. I want to start with my books of the week. Really is one book, Donnell Clayton, right? Got a chance to see her on CBS Today show or the morning show. And she has a new book out called The Memory Thieves. She said several books out, The Bells, The Marvels, The Marvelers, right? And she uses a very unique method because most of our young people today, man, there's so many crazy things coming out. So many things like Harry Potter. Remember the Harry Potter, the whole magic thing? Kobe Bryant did something. He got a whole series out on using your imagination and different things like that. So she got a new book out and she addresses a number of things with kids around bullying and racism and all the things that are happening in our adult world, right? She brings it in her books, right? To have conversations about that all people are beautiful. All colors are beautiful, right? And she addresses a whole lot of mature issues in her book, right? In a very special way. So if you get a moment, check her out. She's on YouTube. Of course, you can check her out on, you can go to her website and check her out. And she's a fantastic author. Make sure you check her. Let me see those books again. Let everybody see that again, just in case they missed it. Right. Checked out. These are my books of the week from Donnell Clayton. And then here's my word of the week. Fantasy. Right. One of the things, sometimes when you mention these words, some people are like, man, don't mention those words, because that's of the devil. Sometimes because when most people don't understand what fantasizing is, and that fantasy or fantasizing could be a negative or a positive situation. Now, I used to fantasize about playing in the NBA. So at night, man, I used to fantasize, see myself floating through the air, see myself making passes, see myself playing on my high school team. I should fantasize on that and seeing myself play in college and seeing myself play in the pros, right? All those kinds of things. That's a positive when you fantasize. That's a positive fantasy, right? I'm not talking about negative fantasy. I'm talking about positive fantasy. Your imagination, your creativity, right? And so today we're getting more and more. You have to be careful because there's a whole lot of fantasies that are negative, right? And you have to be careful what you read, what you look at, what you listen to that gets you in the wrong fantasy, right? Something that's negative, but don't be afraid of the word, right? Because it's a very powerful word, the ability to use your imagination and be creative. And then my affirmation for this week is from my Hill Hopper, Pierce Hopper affirmation quote moment. It says, pay attention. There's opportunity in every new day. Every day you wake up, pay attention, right? Because you never know when somebody is going to offer you an assignment or offer you a job, offer you an opportunity. There's an opportunity in every day. And check this out. You know, everybody, man, in this pandemic, it was crazy in the pandemic, right? But some people looked at the pandemic and it was bad. I'm not exaggerating. It was bad. I mean, we could never imagine what happened in the pandemic, right? But some people got stuck during the pandemic. All their dreams and all their hopes and all their ideas and all their creative ideas, they just stopped doing it, right? They just got paralyzed. But there are some people, right, who looked at it as opportunity. What can I do with this opportunity, right, in the midst of this pandemic? I think I took advantage of the opportunity of the pandemic to start a podcast to give people hope, right? So that you come on Sundays and we could talk about, you know, being encouraged, being loved, being hope, having hope, right? And so, right, look at every day, and look at every issue, and look at every disappointment as an opportunity, right? So let me move on here, and that's my affirmation for this week. And then here's my music, right? My music of the week is the Whinings. Man, I kind of grew up on these guys, got an opportunity when I was playing in the pros. I got a chance to meet the Whinings, you know, all the brothers, you know, back in the day, man. I still listen to their stuff. Their stuff is still so real and so relevant today, right? I love listening to it. I got it a part of my music list. And hey, man, if you never heard of the Whinings, man, pull them up, man. Listen to some very powerful things. Their music has transcended time because the things they were singing about in the past have become relevant today. And so check them out, bring them back, pull them back up, pull them back out, and listen to them. And then I had an opportunity last week, I think it was, myself and my son Isaiah. We went to see the Blue Beetle. Now we talk about fantasizing, fantastic imagination, creativity. He's a new superhero, the Blue Beetle, man. If you get a chance to check that out before it gets out the movie, because pretty quick it's going to be on demand. So make sure you check out that movie. It was an awesome movie and exciting. I loved it. So and then my person of the week is Wilt Chamberlain. Man, he came to mind when I was thinking about like great players. Man, I don't know if you didn't know Wilt Chamberlain, we think of LeBron James, we think of Michael Jordan, we could even think of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, right? We can even think of Oscar Robertson. We could think of a lot of players, right? But there's no player greater, right? Even though my favorite all-time player is Michael Jordan, right? But Wilt Chamberlain, I mean, this guy was amazing. He was phenomenal, right? And you see some of the things that he has there, most consecutive 60-point games, you know, the fewest games to get to 30,000 points, the most free throws made. And I mean, he averaged per game 20. He holds today 72 NBA records, right? I mean, think about that, man. Nobody talks about Wilt Chamberlain, but he holds today 72 NBA records. I mean, it's mind-boggling when you think about Wilt Chamberlain. Just awesome. So, hey, he's my person of the week, right? And then let's get rolling. Real quickly, I'm the chair of the Westchester chapter of the King Movement. And I mean, if you guys are in Westchester, New York, and you're interested in being a part of a men's organization called the King Movement, the president, Chris Broussard, there's about 18 and 19 chapters throughout the nation. And for us, we have partnership with the Mount Vernon Public Library. And, that's the schedule. We got a schedule. We just had a meeting last week. Next month, October 21st, we're actually showing the movie Courage, right? I think that's on the next slide, showing the movie Courage. I mean, hit me up, man, if you're interested in being a part of the King Movement. We're looking to impact our community. We're looking for men to impact the community. in a special way for God. Right. And then my wife's being installed, as you know, on the 28th, Saturday, the 28th, October 28th at 12 o'clock, at the Emmanuel Pentecostal Faith Temple. She's going to be installed as the assistant pastor. That's going to be an awesome day. I think Pastor Derek Adam is doing the honors, and I'm looking forward to it. And we're going to have a great time on that day. And and then every Wednesday, man, I think I'm busy. My wife's busy. Everybody's busy. But every Wednesday, right? Every Wednesday for the last 9 years, I've been hosting the National Christian Men's Zoom conference call called the Mature Men, right? And right now we're studying Let Us Make Man. Our host is Jose Sanchez, and we're studying the tabernacle and the order of Melchizedek every Wednesday. We've been doing this for 9 years. We've been reaching men nationally with our National Mature Men's Call Zoom conference call. And then what's coming up on the blueprint is that next week we're in Greensboro, North Carolina, WABA Final Four, right? We're going to be live on Saturday. We're going to be live in the morning at 9 o'clock in the morning. We're going to be live talking to the coaches, talking to the players. Man, we're going to have a great time. Even the Storm last year, we had a great time in Greensboro, North Carolina. And then we think we're just speaking it into existence. It's going to be a marvelous weekend next week. So that blueprint is going to be next week. And then Dr. Helen Brown Dowell, right? Again, she's a CEO and global inventor of mobile unlimited technology worldwide. You're going to be amazed about this. I don't know if you know, my son's in a wheelchair, Isaiah, but every year there are so many deaths of people in wheelchairs trying to cross the street. Just getting across the street. She made me think about this, crossing the street. And she came up with an invention, right, to help protect. She came up with signage to help protect when wheelchairs are going back and forth across the street. She came up with this technology after a friend of hers passed away trying to get across the street and a car hit him. Right. And so we're going to have on the show. It's going to be an amazing show. She's going to talk about her invention, her technology, and it's just going to be an awesome show. So and then October 22nd, we're going to have Dr. K. Veronica Smith. She's the acting superintendent in Mount Vernon School District here in New York. And I'm looking forward to that conversation about education, about growth and development. And on October the 22nd, right? And then happy birthday to my father-in-law. Happy heavenly birthday to the man, right? My father-in-law was amazing. I had so many great conversations, so many great discussions, right? And I just thank him, man, for he allowed me to marry his daughter, right? And now we're in our 40th year of marriage. I want to thank Poppy, right? Lloyd P. Wallace. I want to thank him, longtime educator, vice principal, the man, right? Awesome. So I think that's it. And we're ready to get rolling. Now I'm going to show you this brief highlight. And then we're going to be in our conversation for this evening.
31-18. Bowers used the body to shield Sturm and then dropped it in. Walker, that brings the crowd up. What a block. Bowers from Hurley. Greer with 4. He missed the free throw, and Hurley speeds to the other end. Bowers has hit 2 in a row. Vintage Bobby Hurley, push it up on the break.
Troy Bowers. What's up, Troy?
Man, how you doing? Thank you
I'm
for
good.
having me on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. You remember that highlight, man?
Long time ago. Long time ago.
Yeah. Oh man. Man, let's quickly and I go back to I think I have a picture. We had some pictures of Troy like at Boston College. So I think that was down in
Jersey Shore.
Jersey Shore.
Yeah, I used to play with all the heavy hitters, Rick Mahorn and Adonal Foyle, Donyell Marshall, Bobby Hurley, Rashawn McLeod. We had a nice little squad for the Pro-Am League.
Yeah. And then you went on, received a scholarship and went on to Boston College.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But let me say this. Man, Troy and I, we kind of go a little bit way back, but and of course, my most important time we spent together while you were working with the Knicks and MSG, and you guys used to come down to the Boys and Girls Club and used to do those basketball clinics with all the kids, man. You used to take time to talk to them, not just about basketball, about life, the fundamentals of life, the fundamentals of basketball. But what I enjoyed most, man, was our engaging conversations about our relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the most, because I think it's hard to find people today, when you're just walking around, you meet people, we talk about basketball, we talk about business, but to have a conversation and it be comfortable talking about God, and you understanding purpose, why you're working with the Knicks or why you're working for Madison Square Garden, you understand purpose, God's purpose in your life, to be able to help people, man. And to me, that was engaging and very powerful. So I want to talk, get you to share a little bit about Troy Bowers. Who is Troy Bowers? Right. Talk about growing up, mom, dad, siblings, talk about that experience.
Yeah.
And talk about it around the importance of family, the importance of education, and most importantly, the importance of faith.
Well, I'm going to start off one. I'm very thankful again to be here. And then secondly, I hope that I can be as open as possible. My journey started off in Staten Island, New York. I was born in Manhattan. I lived in the projects at 820 Henderson Avenue in Staten Island. My mom, unfortunately, she was divorced. My real dad was a police officer in New York City. And my mom used to always whisper in my ear about, finding that one job. And she used to work 3 jobs for me and my 3 siblings. And so I used to always watch my mom just work. She worked for Manpower, MTA, New Jersey Turnpike. I mean, my mom had a lot of jobs. Man. And I used to let my sisters in, latchkey kid, the terminology, let ourselves in, cook our own breakfast, cook our own lunch. And my mom used to always whisper, and I used to always see her and feel, a lot of the things that she was going through. And it sunk to me, as a kid. I didn't want to get in no trouble. I saw the things in the projects. You got all these alter ego people. You got a lot of things going on. You got the people smoking and drinking, and you're in an environment that pulls you in if you ain't strong and if you don't have a good foundation, and there were role models, but they kind of tucked in a little bit. They were tucked away. They wasn't as loud, I think, as today. And so that helped cultivate me to thinking about family as I started to mature. And so when I saw the things that transpired with my mom, I used to always say, man, when I get married, this is the person I want to die with. It was almost like it released these generational curses. Like I saw my dad, and I wasn't mad at him because he stepped away, but I was trying to understand why he stepped away. But then when you start to look at my grandfather, and start to look at what they came from, they didn't hear "I love you." They didn't hear, "Hey, good job." They didn't hear any of these things to give them acclamation to being, a decent human being, and so they didn't hear, those things. And so for me, those are things that I wanted to improve on. Those are things that I wanted to do better. So when I saw these things and then kind of fast forwarding, it just kind of gave me stability. And not perfect, because back in those days, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have these groups. We didn't have all this access to resources and information. You had to figure it out. You remember we had the World
Mhm.
Cyclopedia. If you wanted to know something, you went to the World Cyclopedia. If you did a book report, you went to the World Cyclopedia. That was all we had. People didn't really talk. Men don't cry. Men don't do this. There was a lot of false information being put out. So,
Mm.
I'm just thankful, that I was able to help hold some of those generational curses. And I'm just thankful for the place that I'm at, man. She just helped inspire me. But even then, it also helped me understand when I went too far, and I guess we'll stretch into this a little bit more, when I went too far with the job, working too much, not having a balanced life, So those are the things that were, that kind of touched me in that period, that gave me more of a foundation to start stepping out where I'm at.
Yeah. And then I think you on last night, did a marvelous job last night.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, actually Friday night,
Mhm.
you were the guest speaker on the men's call on Friday night with Pastor Marvin.
Mhm.
And you were sharing with the brothers. And I appreciate it, the ability with iron sharpen iron and all the information that you gave us that we can use as tools, we talk a little bit about the struggles in terms of not having not where your dad is, but then now you have a stepdad. Talk about that experience, because I think a lot of men grow up with this experience, and it happens so early in life, man, that they don't understand the trauma that it causes,
Yeah.
and how long it takes us to become the men that God wants us to be. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think when you start to look back at what our fathers have gone through, it was work hard, get a paycheck, get a house and a car. Life is more than that. Life is also giving back. Just imagine if everybody just kept everything for themselves and didn't share. When we look at Jesus, the greatest servant of all times, the role model, and if you think of his position, think about this. My father owns everything in the world, but I borrowed a boat to get to Galilee. I borrowed some shekels from the disciples. I borrowed a house for Passover. Even though my father owns this, think about the humility that he came with to still say, "Can I borrow that? Can I have this? Can I use this?" If we look at today is more like a rat race. Today is about now. Today is, how do I look? What's my success like? What and when we forgive, I mean, should I say, I'm sorry, when we give, we're giving because it makes us look good, but not make God look good.
Mm.
And it's almost like, well, I do this and I do that. And examples are, you have people who have large wealths of money asking people who don't have that type of money to give. I can barely pay the light and put food in my refrigerator, but you're a billionaire asking me to make a contribution to get 200,000, and you're sitting there scratching your head going, you can write that check with your eyes closed. But you got people trying to figure out how to put gas in their car to get to work, how to put food in their refrigerator. And then we look at them and say, well, we don't understand why the world is, because the rich don't spend their money. They spend everybody else's money. And then the poor, and I'm not saying that's just everybody. So let me make sure of that. And then the folks who are middle class and underclass, you know, they're struggling. And that's why for me, you know, not having a dad, you know, made me look at things differently. It made me say, these are things that I want to do better. You know, these are things that I want to do differently for my family. And so a perfect example, you know, pops used to, they give you spankings back in the day. They were borderline abuse. Let's be honest. You know, and so think of, if we think of like a lot of the psychological damage of a lot of our young men today, you know, not having a man presence. And it's a proven fact that the percentages go up when you have a male percentage. Not perfect, but the male's percentage goes up for success, leadership, communities, when you have the role of a man around. You know, and I'm not knocking, our women have been doing a fantastic job, but it's time for our women to stand up. You know, they've been holding it down for a long time. And it's more than just writing you know, bringing a check home and working. There's a contribution that a man makes by his presence.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And all the things that you know, you've experienced.
Mhm.
You know, talk about you know, the between high school and college. Talk about that experience. I mean, were you on top? You know, you on again. I'm just the best student. I was the best student in high school, and I got this scholarship. Talk about that experience of, you know, what your goal was. What was your dream and goal at the time? You know, when as you're going through this process of education, what was the goal? Well, you know, and you know, talk about a little bit how high school and college you
Um,
transition.
it was interesting because, again, when you don't have a format to follow, you just winging it. You know what I mean? It's just like, go to the park, you work on your game, you do this. And then, you know, I remember when I was in the 5th or 6th grade and I was coming home from my middle school, and we would pass the high school and we would look in the window and we would see all the varsity players. And I remember I had a crew, my boy Steve and my boy Bang and my boy Chris. And we used to look in the window and say, man, we're going to get that one day, you know? And we used to walk back to school, and then we'd go to the park and we would play. We played constantly, consistently. But also the other part to that was, well, we're going to try to stay out of trouble. We ain't going to try to do nothing that's going to get us shot. We're going to try to do our schoolwork. But I wasn't the best student either, because later on down the road, I found out that I had ADHD, was struggling through a lot of things, and didn't realize that I needed to be in an environment where it was quiet, it was less distraction. But I thought it was something wrong with me. I was like, man, how come when I read this, it takes me so much time to understand this? Well, and I thought, me personally, and I never really explained it to nobody. I didn't talk to nobody about it. My parents never got me tested or whatever, but I knew something was different. I was the kind of cat that had to read things 3 or 4, 5 times for me to comprehend those things. You know, and I used to see people ace tests and I used to just pass. I mean, there was a lot of things that I thought that was wrong with me, but it really wasn't wrong with me. It was just how I learned and obtained things versus other things. But I was really hands-on. I used to take my TV apart and stereos apart. And then, you know, and I had no teaching, no nothing. I could just sit and look at a stereo and be like, I know what's wrong with that. Problem solve that. I had this great technically inclined mindset, but when it came to school, it was something different from me. So I used to watch kids get A's and B's, and I did want to go to college, but I was still sitting there saying, but I know I got to do better than this, you know? So as I got through middle school, went into high school, things started changing a little bit. I started seeing teachers, and they don't make them like they used to. Teachers that, oh, I shouldn't say they don't make them like they used to, but maybe they're not allowed to do the things that they used to, where teachers could see things and help you change the trajectory of things. But you also had to be in that place where you wanted those things to change. Because a lot of kids now, they're preoccupied by their phones and social media and everything else, and don't understand that they're being robbed of their time. Because now you have distractions that keep you from focusing on yourself. So with the basketball part and the school part, it was like, now I started seeing teachers started saying, hey, you told me you want to go to college. That behavior is not going to get you into college. Those grades ain't going to get you into college. And if you need a tutor, you got to raise your hand and ask for one, or meet me after class. And I thank the Lord every day for the teachers that I had at Roselle High School that invested in Troy Bowers. And I'm not saying they didn't invest in nobody else. They got me through and told me what college was going to be like. And they got me as prepared as I could be, And even on the basketball side, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what this whole college thing was about. I saw we had kids that went to Duke from my high school and North Carolina from my high school, but nobody never sat around talking about the recruiting process. What are you looking for? They didn't share those things. And it's just like today. Men don't share enough resources. And that's why I'm glad. That's why I'm glad I'm on here, man. And I love what you're doing. And so men and young people need to hear this. Boston College, I was recruited by a lot of schools, 500 schools. But I didn't play center in high school. I went to Boston College and I played center. So I didn't understand the recruiting process where Ohio State was going to play me at small forward. So there's these things that I want kids to know today is that when you are being recruited, ask questions, understand things. It's this can change the trajectory of your life if you don't ask questions. We're just so enamored with, oh man, I'm going to college. Somebody's going to pay my tuition. Do you fit in the program?
Yeah, and that's probably one of the things and I was having a conversation with somebody earlier about this. One of the reasons, right, why you see so much now with the portal, right? Because we just, like you said, we excited about, oh, Duke's going to give me a scholarship, or West Virginia's going to give me a scholarship, or this one's going to give me a scholarship, or we want to have that type of scholarship, right? And we're just excited about getting somebody wanting to give us a scholarship that we don't even ask questions like, I like to run, I'm a good 3-point shooter. I mean, I like whatever it is that we like. And we don't have those conversations. We get there, and then, because the recruiting process is everybody's going to tell you what they want to hear.
Absolutely.
If you're depending on where you fall at, or what they need, they're going to say, yeah, we do that. That's all good. And then we make a decision to go, and we realize, man, I can't play this kind of way. I'm not that type of player. Oh, I thought we don't even ask about school. No. What's at the school? We don't ask questions. Is it cold? Is it hot? I mean, and so having a person like yourself who says, with what you're doing in terms of mentorship and in terms of, life coaching and telling you get at least get to speak to kids about and ask these questions that they can't ask of themselves, which is very powerful and really needed at every level right now.
And just to add to that too, it was just like, you get kids today getting all this training, skill training. Now, some players can transition that training into playing, and some just become skilled guys in practice. So when you got people who can communicate and then put you in situations and scenarios, how to execute those things so that you can put those things in real life situations, then this is how you become a better basketball player, because then they can teach you there's a psychic to this game as well. You can physically do everything. You can physically condition yourself. You can physically work on your skill sets. You can do all the watching TV. But if you can't put that in a real life situation, when you get on that court. You can't, if you can't trition that, you just become a practice player. And there's so many kids today when you say, okay, you're practicing, working on all these different things, but when you get in the game, do you get the opportunity to execute these things? And so I see these trainers and they're training these kids and they're all doing the same thing. I said, but this kid is not going to be this kind of player. This kid is going to be a different type of player. And you have to put them in two different categories. This kid is going to be a defensive kid. This kid is going to be a rebounder. This kid's going to have a mixed talent. Being able to see those different skill sets versus just putting everybody in the box. Okay, you're going to learn how to dribble. We all learn how to dribble. We all learn how to do this. That might not be that kid. And you know, and I know, at the next level, there's a job for a rebounder. There's a job for a shot blocker. There's a job for high intensity. There's a job for kids who have high IQs. There's a job, we all know there's a job for an offensive juggernaut, but there's also jobs for other skill sets as well. And they don't highlight that. So when kids see things, all they see is buckets. If you don't get no buckets, I ain't a part of the team. And then there's the kid who just sits and is the coach on the floor. Just so many different things that transpire on that floor, but kids just get brainwashed in one thing: highlights. Listen, I want to share this with the world. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I missed pre-draft camp. I'll never forget. I take full responsibility because I was supposed to go to Portsmouth, Virginia. I was on the waiting list. And my agent called me and he said, yo, we're trying to get you on the list. You got to be ready by 9 o'clock. You know, I made a mistake, man. And I hung out all night, got home at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. My agent, they were calling me all day long. And they said, hey, where were you? We had you on the backup list for Portsmouth, Virginia. So I killed my opportunity to try to make it to the league, to try to be drafted, you know? So I go backwards in time trying to change kids taking that 5-second situation and having it change the trajectory of your life. You know, yes, I got invited I tried out for the Celtics. I tried out for the Cavs, and I still wasn't mature enough to understand that here I'm hanging out with some of my buddies that already were in the league, and I'm hanging out all night, and they signed for 5 years. I didn't sign for 5 years. And you know, and I know, Lowe's, those teams know every single thing you do. Free agent, regular agent, they know when they players is hanging out all night long. They know if you're not they know if you're not serious. And I remember Lenny Wilkins telling me the day I was walking out, he said, son, I can't tell you what you would have done, but if you would have took this a little bit more serious, something could have been different in your life. Lenny Wilkins told me that story, you know? And so I share that with the world, and I share that with young people to say, don't make the same mistake I did. You know, be accountable for your actions. Be accountable for the things that you do in your life. I said, don't make the same mistakes that Troy Bowers did.
Yeah. And you know, that's why I wanted to have a conversation around this, and your experience and my experience around this. You know, because you know, one of the things I've found out, and then you can tell me whether I'm right or wrong with this. You know, and again, I've been talking about this for several weeks now with different people, right? You know, sometimes when you're in life, right, you are being how would you say it? You don't know this process, and many people don't know how, especially young people. They don't know how, and maybe they don't have I like to think that the person who's coaching you in AAU or the person who's training you, right, will have the knowledge to be able to say these things you just finished talking about. You know, and so say you're a rebounder, you know, so you go there because they recruited you because they needed a rebounder.
Absolutely.
Right. And they select people. You play defense. Okay, you're a scorer, right? Or you run the team well. And so I'm talking about development.
Mhm.
So now you there, whether you're in high school or college, now you're there because you made the team because these are some of the things that you have.
Right.
Right. But then a lot of times people don't have time to develop you. You made the team because you fit this. You got this scholarship because you fit that.
Right.
Right. And so there's not enough time in the day to help you develop the other skills that you need. Right. And when you can't get better, they recruit over you. So or they find somebody else who could do that. So talk about, now you've been around, you played high school ball, you played college ball, you went overseas, you played overseas, and then you were working with the Knicks and around the Knicks and for MSG, right? When it comes to development, right? When it comes to development, talk about what you've seen in regards to development. I mean, in developing players, because there's a difference between, I noticed there's a difference between a player in yesteryear when we were growing up, right? I mentioned one of them in the beginning of the show, Wilt Chamberlain, right? And the difference in today in regards to development.
Well, I think now the development of kids today is so different than like when me and you were growing up. There were specialized positions when you and I were growing up. But now you have every kid almost playing the same position on the. Did I lose you?
No, you didn't lose me. Can you hear me? I think we froze, but
yeah,
we'll work that out.
Okay. Yeah. So
yeah.
So now when I see the game to now, I watch some of these elite, the Peach Jam and all these different leagues. Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. When I see a lot of these leagues now, kids, two things. Kids want to be on a stacked summer league, or should I say AU league, regardless if they're getting any work experience on the floor, just because they're enamored with the bags and the sneakers and all the other things. But none of those things are making them better. And then the other side to that is you got players that pretty much do the same thing. So now it's just a matter of who gets the exposure versus the ones who kind of just sit and just become bodies on the bench. And where I felt like when we were growing up, you specialized in the position: power forward, center, guard, small forward. So there was a lot more specialty players, where today everybody brings the ball up. Everybody is on the wing. Everybody. So to me, it's like, how do you find your place on the floor when everybody kind of looks almost the same? And so it must be confusing to a player who just goes, well, I got to practice everything. I got to be able to do everything, because if I want an opportunity, but you're not going to be great in everything. You can be great in a lot of things, but you're not going to be great in everything. And that's what I see. And then as far as development is concerned, it's kind of hard, because now today everybody has access to the machines and this and that. So now it's just a matter of who puts the most time in and who gets the exposure to be able to expedite those things. And that's what I see. You know what I mean? At the NBA, there's no doubt about it that every one of those guys from the beginning to the end belongs there. But then there's positions when you say, all right, let's say the sixth, I'm going to even go to seventh man. From the seventh to the first man, those guys are very talented. They get it. And the one thing I see, and it's a psychic to the game, they believe they're better than everybody regardless of their circumstances and situations. Where other guys probably question things, but they're happy to be there. And so the other guys, maybe it could have been just the movement of the draft or movement of certain circumstances. And it could have been some other guys in there as well. But the first 7 guys on the roster, there's no doubt in my mind those guys belong there. And moving behind those guys, there could have been some strategic other guys involved as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking, about this whole development thing, this whole development piece, man, is in terms of how you move forward. And then one of the reasons, for instance, there's 2 parts to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 parts where you're talking about like, hey, how do I grow? How do I develop? Right. And then I think one of the things when you were speaking earlier, and I think the portal exposed it,
Yes.
right? During the course of the pandemic.
Yes.
It goes to show you how many dissatisfied people.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
How many dissatisfied now you see how many people like go to schools and they're not satisfied.
Right. Well,
right.
Yeah, I mean, the other side to that is, again, because kids now have also access to things that you and I did not have. So if you went to a school and you didn't like what was going on today, like you said, you put your name in the portal and you're out. But you also got to remember there's a lot of other circumstances like the grades, all those different types of things. Like it's a whole different scenario now. If me and you wanted to transfer from the schools we want, it was a little different, a little bit more bumps. How do you know? How can you get your name out there to say, hey, I left Boston College or I left Villanova and I want to go to another school? Things didn't work out for me. I thought it was a different situation. And unfortunately, you're doing the best you can for yourself. You want to showcase yourself and give yourself the opportunity. But at the same time, you have to be honest with yourself. Are you putting in the work? Are you studying the game? Are you really being honest with, how you take care of yourself? And I did not learn those things until I was almost late 20s, early 30s about taking care of yourself and your mindset. And if we could teach anything to these young people, it's like, take care of yourself, study the game, understand the people who got there before you. I mean, there's so many elements that bring value to you. And yes, I'm not talking about, of course, you got to put the work in, without a doubt. But there's a lot of people working. But the biggest difference is understanding if you go to a team, what do they need? Because you might not be what a team needs. In the NBA, you might not be what the team needs. You
right.
Can be good at rebounding, but the team's looking for a passer or a scorer. It's like a chess game. It's not that you're not good. You're just not what the team needs. They already got that already. And you're not moving those first 7 dudes out.
Right. And
kids got to understand that. But I think also, too, kids won't look at college and say, what's going to keep me on the floor? What work do I need to put in? It's a different time, man. It really is.
Yeah. And I think like you get recruited.
Yep.
You get recruited and you go to the school. And you get there and you realize, man, I'm not playing, man. So I guess they're asking the question. You would ask the question, is it me or is it them? And what is that? Because one of the things I thought, for me personally, and I just had a different mindset. Mm-hmm. So when I got to college, I got to college with a number of different freshmen like myself. Mm-hmm. Right. And I started thinking about like, okay, I was learning a system. Right. And they already had 5 people who could start. Mm-hmm. I was just a freshman. So you had seniors and juniors. And the question is how you fit in. Right. So I'm going there like trying to figure out like, okay, all the things. I'm an All-American, parade or whatever, top 25 high school players in the country. And they knew I had potential. They didn't know whether I was going to play right then and there, mm-hmm. So the other thing is, going to practice or going to workouts and then thinking about what extra I needed to do. You know, like get there early, you know, leave there late, leave there and go to the recreation center. You know, I was just thinking about like how I finally got into the rotation was the extra stuff I was doing, not necessarily the stuff that I was being taught to help me make that learning curve, but it was the extra stuff, the extra time I was putting myself in, and then I was putting in, and then turning around looking at the same guys who were freshmen like me, who went to practice, and then it was over. They like, okay, back to the thing, back to the dorm. Let's get something to eat. You know, I think about how hard I had to work, how much extra time I had to put in, and let me say this, like you were talking about earlier, academically, whatever I was doing physically in terms of basketball was the same exact thing I had to do academically. Right. I mean, I had to get to class early. You know, I had to stay up late and read that book and read those chapters. I mean, I just had to put in so much extra time just to be a good student, you know. And again, I mean, because all of this is new. I mean, going to college was new. It was a whole new world. And and you know, now you're teaching yourself.
Yeah.
You know, which is crazy. You teaching yourself, man, and there's nobody saying, there's no teacher saying like, hey man, you need to get up early, you need to come in and do this, you know. And a lot of times I don't think whether you plan, and it's doubly hard if you're going to school, college, and playing a sport, right? And then we're not even talking about the social issues. I mean, there's a lot of young people today, man. They just not, you know, oh, we're happy that our kids are going to school. We just don't know what's happening out there when they go to school.
Yes.
You know, because your kid could go to school and come back totally different.
Yes.
You know, and I mean, most kids, statistically, it says that most kids don't survive the first year. You know, so even whether you got a scholarship or whether you got a loan, you know, going to school, what you was doing in high school here and middle school, elementary school, college is a whole new world. You know,
let me tell you something. I remember my freshman year, all state, top 75 players in the nation, all that stuff. And I remember my first practice at Boston College. I was like, man, Big East. Yo, every game is on regular TV. Every game, you know, every time I walk through the airport, yo, what's up, Troy? You know, and then I remember my first practice. Man, I went to put it on somebody. I'll never forget, his name was Stu Primus. He was our two guard. Man, he caught me in the air, and I was like this. He said, welcome to the Big East, young buck. And I was like this. So in my mind, I'm thinking, yo, I'm used to dunking on people. I'm used to catching people. But I never thought like, yo, he the best dude in Massachusetts. This dude is the best dude in Chicago. This dude's the best dude in LA. I didn't think that way. You know what I mean? Coming from New York, you just play. But then you're like, yo, this is the best dude in his area. And man, I woke up after laying on the floor. I was like, man, what happened? He's like, yo, you got welcome to the East. And that's why I said, you know, it's so different, our mindsets. And not that we wasn't competitive, but you had this thing where, you know, you didn't think other people exist that had those same accolades somewhere else. You just like, you're just so used to doing it in New York. New York, you play against everybody in New York.
That's
There's
right.
so many players, you don't even think about the dudes out of state.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah. And so I know we jumped on the whole basketball and we hope that there's some parents out there.
Yeah.
You know, let me say that I hope there's some parents out there or somebody listening and you may be mentoring or you got a kid, every kid, or you a teacher. And because every kid said when you ask them the question, hey man, what you gonna do when you grow up? Man, I'm playing the pros. Yeah. You know, I'm going to I'm I'm playing college basketball. You hear this, you listen to this conversation, man, and man, there's a whole planning and preparation for this.
Absolutely.
You know, it's just not going to wake up one day and end up there. And fortunately for us, we were able to do that with little to no information.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and for me, and probably for Troy too, is that we seen guys before us make it. So we were just kind of following in their footsteps, you know, to make it. But Troy, talk a little bit about, man, your wife, family today. And talk a little bit about that, man. We can't leave her out, man.
Well, I'll tell you this. It's married 32 years, and I'll say this. That woman is super duper special. I know I put her through some ropes and strings, but I love her dearly, and I don't think sometimes people really truly understand what goes into a marriage. And there's no such thing as 50-50. Those numbers change regularly and daily. And you can't base anything on the other person. You do your best. Don't worry about that person doing their best. You do your best. Do what God asks you to do. Because so many times we do like this. Well, you ain't doing this for me. Well, I'm not going to do this for you. That ain't going to last. And what's going to last is if you focus on making yourself the best version for the marriage and understand that you are going to be an example. And I say this all the time. It's like, I used to always worry about everything else, but not me. And you can see the holes in everyone else, but you don't see your holes.
Right.
So now I started working on taking some putty and a putty knife and patching up my holes. Because if I can take the time to patch up my holes and see the things that I need to see about myself, it would make me see her in a different light. And I think a lot of times with married couples, they put expectations and things that they can't do because they're so busy throwing rocks and stones at their significant other. And so if I had a chance to go backwards, I would do a lot of things differently. Like I would manage my time with work. I would have managed times differently because Lowe's, one thing you can understand more so now being I call it Jesus chaser, is that everything happens for a reason. So if we look at this like this, Lowe's, no matter how well we eat, no matter how much time we go to the gym, no how much time we think health, it's the mercy of God that keeps us where we are today. It ain't got nothing to do with us. Because when God calls us to go, we out. It don't matter what the circumstances are. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. So they take time for granted, the minutes, the hours, the seconds. And so now I had to go backwards. I had to do that with my own children. I had to go, hold up. When I worked for the NBA almost 19 years, it was 60 and 70-hour work weeks. And you just assume that you're going to be there. But after I buried friends between the ages of 40 and 50, I said, hold on a second. We got to do things a little different. And I started contemplating my leave with the Knicks a long time ago because in my mind, I'm saying I'm taking life for granted. And this is the reason why if people can hear me today, it's almost like saying, if the doctor came to you and said, you got 6 months to live, how would you live your life? See, and so if we took that same process and try to implement it to today, you would do things differently because those same things they wouldn't be as important as you spending quality time with your parent. Like my wife would say, what time you coming to bed? What time you want me in bed? My wife would say, she'll say things like, well, let's eat dinner. We should get a date night. I hear her loud and clear. And a lot of times men don't want to hear this until the woman goes, how many times I got to tell you? And then it feels like it's nagging, but it's not nagging. Think about it. When somebody loves you, they tell you calmly the first time. They tell you smoothly the second time. And then they're yelling at you the third time.
Right.
So they're telling us these things. And us men, what are we doing? We watching the football game. We hanging out with our boys. And so I'll even say it. I'm apologizing for my wife for taking time for granted. So I hope that there's some folks out there that can hear me to say, please don't take it for granted that you both are going to be there. It's the mercy of God that keeps us alive, because we all got assignments, and we're not leaving here till those assignments are done. But we don't know the timing of those assignments. Only God does. And we need to stop living like we know when we're going to leave here. And if you thought that way, you would think differently about your household.
Yeah. That was powerful, man. Yeah, you gave out some very powerful nuggets there. Yeah. I like that. Oh man. But talk about that 18 years, man. With the Knicks, and then now transitioning, just getting up. When I heard you we were having a conversation, yeah, man, I'm about to get up out of here. So talk about that time of development with the Knicks, with the young people and stuff like that, and that whole experience for you.
Servanthood. I'm a servant, man. And when I had that position allowed me to have so many different windows with players, with children, with business people, with so many different things. And I used it as a platform to serve. Wasn't scared to lead by example, wasn't scared to get my hands dirty, didn't take the position for granted. I tried to do everything I could. People who didn't come, I had the opportunity to get people to come to games, had the opportunity for people to meet players. I had so many keys of being able to do things for people. I mean, people who knew me, it took me 15 minutes pretty much every day to get upstairs to the office. Why? Because I personally shook everybody's hand every morning for almost 19 years and asked them if there was something that I could do for them. And I think when you look at having a position like that, where your player development, community relations, and you're an example. You know what I mean? And I try to use humility when I had that position. I never thought I was better than anybody, bigger than anybody. And I always use that position, not, to represent me, in a sense where I was like, be the best version of yourself for this position, and then show somebody else, how to be the best version of themselves. And so I use that position, not just for me, I use it as a platform. And Lowe's, I want to share this one little situation. And I remember the power of that logo, because me and my boy Cliff, we used to do this thing where we drove around the schools, right? And we just tested just the power of having this platform. So one day, Cliff and I, you remember Big Cliff Morgan, we rolled up to a school and we said, hey, we'd like to talk to the kids. Principal was like, okay. We showed him our cards, and we was like, hey, he said, we'll make time. And then I said, Cliff, watch this. We drove down the street one more time and we asked people if we can come talk. And I said, they wouldn't let us talk. And I said, you see the difference when you have a platform and it exempts you from different things. Just that platform. They're going to get the same message: character, integrity, school. School doesn't just mean college. It could be trade school. It could be all kinds of different things. All the things that we would have gave those kids, we couldn't give it to them because of the platform. And we need more men to share their experiences. And it was crazy because of that logo, it restricted me from being able to go talk to those kids and give them the same message that I would have gave them pushing that card. And I said, so many people are enamored, I use that word a lot, with logos and brands. And this is the reason why a lot of men can't get those things out, because they'll say, well, I'm a plumber. Plumbers are just as effective as the big corporate CEO. Well, I do a landscaping business. They're just as effective, because you know why? Because there's going to be kids who are going to be landscapers and power washers. They're going to own their car washes and run a restaurant. Every kid is not going to hold a corporate job. So I call it a la carte. Let's lay those resources on the table and let those kids pick. from what they need and what they want to do.
Yeah, I like that. My wife said, "Yeah, this man needs an offering, man. He's giving real nuggets." Remember, this is interactive, so if you got any comments or questions down there, you can just throw them up there, and if it's a question, we'll definitely answer them, man. But you're right, man. And I thank you. I'm truly thank you, man, because so many times you look out there, and this is not a slight of any other culture, right? But our particular culture don't have access to things, like getting Nick tickets, and getting to go to the garden,
right?
And you provided that, going to meet those kids where they are.
Yep.
You on behalf of the Knicks, you provided that, and the crazy thing in there, right? I've never seen you in all the clinics, right? That you had no energy. I mean, you brought the same love, intensity, and energy to every clinic, every single one. When you walk in, man, you're right. When you walked in the Boys and Girls Club, that smile came first. Bam, man, what's up? And you shook hands with everybody as you walked through, and talked to people, and you dealt with, whether they were young or old, you dealt with them with love. And I appreciate that.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to go back to the servant piece again. When you look at the humility of Jesus Christ, right? My daddy owns everything in the world. I got the power of life and death in these hands. And not once did God go, well, I don't feel like doing it today. Jesus, my daughter died. She's only sleeping, but I ain't coming. You know what? Today, the man that's coming through the roof, I'm not healing him in his wheelchair. I don't feel like I don't have the energy today. When you think of these things, that Jesus left the throne, came down to feel what we were going to feel, right? Think about this. He didn't have to, so that we can have a way to get a room with our name on it in his Father's mansion. Think about it. So many of us allow our titles to separate us from who we really are, instead of letting those titles say, that's a gift from God. That's a gift from God. That's a gift from God. And I don't take those things for granted, man.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah. And so you leave after 18, 19 years, on the big stage. You leave and come to Atlanta. Right. Yeah. So talk about that.
I got to say this, and I'll make sure everybody hears this. Fear tells us that we can't, but faith tells us that we can. So often we are scared to be taken out of our comfort zone. As basketball players, we were always proactive. We tried to think of every scenario. But now when you really trust God with faith and you really leaning on him, then you really get to know who you really are as a man or a woman of God. See, it's when you still have control and you don't use the word, it was nothing but God. That's still you. But when you go, that was nothing but God who intervened, then you know that you're on another level. And it was nothing but God that put me in Atlanta, because I was sitting there going like this, just like how we found our house, how we found this town. Even the kids say to me, yo, Coach Bowers, we Googled you. Yo, you play pro ball. You went to college. How did you find this place? I said, I didn't. God did. Well, why did you choose to help us? I said, well, that's my heart, but God put me in this position to do those things. And then what I replied to them was, I thank God every day when somebody comes in my life and says, can I mentor them? Can I help them? Because God didn't have to trust me, Troy Bowers, or Lowe's Moore with people like you ran that club. He could have chose somebody else. And I thank God that he trusts me with his people. That's what it is. He trusts us to direct them. We traffic cops for the kingdom, to
Mhm.
direct them to him, because we just stand in the middle of an intersection going like this: Christ this way, hell this way, Christ this way. And we being honest as we can. You know what I mean? And we still don't have all the answers. He does. And so that's why I said, when I came here with the, and I started a training company. My wife has her own little business, and we're okay, man. You know, God's got us covered. That's faith. That's faith, man. That's faith.
Yeah, yeah. So talk about the training program.
Oh, well, a couple of buddies and I, and they're all, one's from New York, one's from Brooklyn. And so we started Next Five Basketball, where we use the word mentor. See, people will come to us and say, hey, are you a trainer? I say, no, we're a mentor. And if you see that center picture right there, we pray and we ask for the Spirit to lead us in what these kids need. And sometimes when we're training them, a lot of the same things that you were talking about, vision board, integrity, and character. And I said, if there's nothing that you learn from us, we want you to be better people.
Mm.
You know, better people. Because basketball, one day that ball will stop bouncing and it'll be who you are as an individual. And so these are the things that we talk about. People want to send their kids to somebody and all they do is push hoop, 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 hoop. And without pushing the character part, the vision part, you know, what it takes, and honesty. Just like we talk about in that Bible study, the truth. Kids need to hear the truth. And I don't think a lot of kids get the truth. They don't get the truth when they're training with these people. They just, because they're paying, they just accept it. And I won't work with certain people if they don't have certain habits. I just go, I'm not the person for you. You need to work with this person. I'm not going to teach you how to be a basketball Jones. I'm going to teach you how to be the best version of yourself with the wisdom and knowledge that God has given me. Always giving him the praise and the glory and the honor.
I like that, man. I like that a lot, man. Yeah. And I'm thinking, man, when you look back over your life, man, who you think, besides, I know your mom, right?
Yeah.
But who do you think outside of that has had the most impact in your life?
You know, his name was Deacon Smith. He was one of our coaches at my high school. And I have never met a man so committed to God, you know, at that stage of my life. You know, didn't do this and didn't do that. And just, what does it say? Not just be a sayer of the word, but be a doer of the word.
Mm.
Michael Smith in Roselle, New Jersey. I mean, he didn't live in Roselle. He was from East Orange. Was one of my greatest examples of someone that I wanted to be very similar to, but be my version of that self, but be very similar to him in character and attitude. I watched how he raised his children, you know, and not to say he did everything right, but what he did was, you know, you always see him praying. You always seen him talking to people about God. Wasn't scared. He was super bold about Christ. And so today, when I see all these men today, and they pushing this agenda and pushing that agenda, I don't see as a majority this level of boldness for God. And I'm not saying we got some workers out there. There's no doubt in my mind, but I don't see this level of boldness walking with Christ. And I think what happens is this: Christ gave his life for us, but we seem to be scared to give our life for him.
Man, you throwing out some, man. No, because people hear me, they know that what I'm about to say, right? Because, you know, when I was a young kid, my grandfather used to call me in, man, and say, hey, man, come here, boy, I got to give you a nugget. Right. And then I go looking in his hand for a nugget, and he's like, what you looking for? You said you was going to give me a nugget. Right. And he would say something to me.
Yeah.
Right. And on here all the time, people give out nuggets, man. I mean, in that commercial with Damian Lillard, he said dropping dimes, man. You dropped a whole bunch of dimes out here this evening, man. And yeah, they're powerful. And I hope that folks share this, you know, because you sharing a lot, you know, with us tonight. I'm being truly blessed. I was blessed last night of the 3 things you shared with us as well on last night. So well, Friday night, but awesome. Before we get off, man, I mean, you were talking about earlier, and I see you got the little Iron Man and the Hulk back there. And when we were talking about a little bit earlier about your love in regards to technology and video games. So talk a little bit about that, you know, your love for it.
You know, one of the perks of that journey, you know, being in the pro area and the NBA, was you get to meet a lot of people. So I had the opportunity to meet the guys from Marvel Comics and DC Comics. And so I had the opportunity to go to the studio because they used to have a studio in New York and meet those guys. So I got a chance to meet the editors and all kinds of things. So I always had a love for comics through my grandfather. God bless him. He passed and moved on. And my grandfather used to always treat me to comics when I used to hang with him. And when I was young, he would go play OTB. And while he was playing OTB in the Bronx, he'd treat me to some comics. He'd be like, come on, grandson, I'm going to go. And he would be reading the newspaper for the horses. And I'd have my head over the edge for comic books. So I've always had this enjoyment and love for comics. So I said to myself, when I moved and I got more than enough room, I said, I want a theme with all my Marvel characters and comic books and all kinds of things. So I've been blessed, fortunately, to have a comic. I have 10,000 comics, all types of stuff. And then with the video games, I've been blessed because I have a lot of friends who work in the industry. So I have thousands and thousands of games. I have closets full of systems. And I also, you know, I'm very generous with these things as well, because I never want to lose sight of God again. And I'm always giving him the credit who helped open these doors. You know, God opened these doors and he knew that I was going to use these doors properly, not just for my enjoyment, but for these young people's enjoyment. Kids tell me, hey, man, I really enjoy it. I'll scoop up a couple, bring them to school, you know, and if we could get kids to read, I don't care if they read comics. I don't care if they read this or that, just as long as they reading something, you know, just let them read, you know. So again, never taking the glory away from my father, thanking him that he opened these doors so that I can have this blowout of things at my exposure, you know. And again, Lowe's, you know, one thing I'm gonna say is, like, just for brothers like yourself, watching what you've done, watching how you loved on those children, watch how you wanted to see those kids expand and be the best versions of themselves for the kingdom, for their communities, for their parents, and, you know, Pastor Graham, you know, Gary. When I look at all the men that God has put me around, and we use that Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpens iron, God again has positioned me to be around men like yourself. And I don't take those relationships for granted. You know, if somebody says Lowe's Moore, my eyes pop up and say, what about him? You know, you know, Gary and all these other brothers that I've been around, you know, when people say your names, they light up because of the impact. And all I am, again, is a part of the team. This God, you know, made the Avengers, but we are a different type of Avengers. You know, and we work for the kingdom. And we just doing God's work, man. And we just making sure that we give him the glory. So I'm never gonna sit here and take this platform to myself as brothers like you, Pastor Graham, and Art and all these other brothers, man, that just when I watch what you do for the kingdom, it just says to me that wherever I'm at, whatever I'm going through, God's gonna see us through. So I gotta say thank you to you in the work that you've done. I got to say thank you to Pastor Graham and Art and all these other brothers, Pastor Johnson, all you brothers that are out there and you are making a difference. I salute you, brothers, as well. It's an honor for me to be here today and tonight, but I also got to say thank you for watching you do the stuff that you do to impact what you've done. So again, I'm cool, but I'm always going to throw things back at the brothers who are in that battle. So thank
Yeah,
you.
man.
Bro.
Oh man, I appreciate that, man. Thank you, and man, thank you for taking time out your busy schedule. Since you were talking about, Burn said the Kingdom Adventures. Oh man, yeah, true, real impact leaders. I mean, may God continue to work through you. We thank you for your boldness and faithfulness. And
Oh man.
yesterday we, my nephew, who's really close with my son Isaiah,
Yeah.
bought him a PS5, and so we bought, the everything that goes with it, the other controller. Everybody bought something, the charger base,
Yeah.
So last I seen, they was trying to put this thing together, and telling how late he gonna be up, but he better get ready for
School.
going to school. Yeah. So, Troy, thanks a lot, man, for joining me this evening, man. You threw out like a lot of great nuggets, man. And let me say this to everybody out there. Remember, this stays on Facebook. Lowe's More the Blueprint on Facebook, and it stays on YouTube. So, some people always tell me, I missed the show last night. You can always return and see it. And you can always share it. I mean, if, something that we said tonight in regards, you got a student athlete out there, you got somebody looking to be, thinking about being an athlete in the future or entertainer, all the stuff is relevant, whether you're an entertainer or athlete, or you trying to get into a career, all this stuff is relevant. You got to listen to it. When Troy is talking about the preparation of it, asking questions, to find out, how do I get to my next level? One of the things that really bother me as I close, right, is that one of the things I used to do was that when I seen something that I liked or seen something that I was interested in, I used to always, how do you do that?
Right.
How did you get there? If I want to do that, how do I get there? I mean, so many young people today do not ask people questions. They just think there's some osmosis. We just going to appear to be great, right? Without talking to mentors, without talking to your teachers, without talking to your parents.
Yeah.
If I can say this also, man, I mean, your parents have gone through some things, right? And they're trying to help you avoid what they've been through, right? Listen to your parents. I mean, I think even scripturally it says, honor thy mother and father.
That's right.
Right. And you shall live long.
That's right.
Right. That's what it says when you honor your mother and your father.
That's right.
So again, I want to say thank you to each and every one who joined me every week on the Blueprint Podcast. I love you guys. Don't forget about next week. We're in Greensboro, North Carolina. We're at the Final Four, the WABA. My wife owns the Shamrocks, or in Mount Vernon Shamrocks, or we like Westchester Shamrocks. They're in the Final Four, and I think DC is in the Final Four. Well, there are a few other teams. You're gonna learn about those teams because next Saturday morning we're gonna talk to all the coaches, the owners, and they're trying to really grow. I think it's over 40, 50 girls that played in the WABA that received contracts overseas. Because there's a limited. DC and Raleigh, North Carolina, right? There's so many girls that come out that want to play, but there are limited positions and teams in the WNBA, right? And so my wife's best friend, her teammate in college, who owns the ABA men's semi-pro team in Jersey, right? And And then she decided that she was going to start her entire league. So now she started the WABA, which is like 5 or 6, 7 years in, still growing, about 18, 19 teams, across the country, mostly owned by African Americans, owners of the teams. So we're just praying that one day, people will recognize this. But man, the impact that they've had over the last 6 or 7 years of getting because everybody dream about playing pro, right? But you get an opportunity to go overseas and play, right? Because they're streaming the games and getting information out on all these girls and these young ladies. And man, and they are terrific basketball players. I mean, they can really, really play. And so I'm looking forward to it. Last year was my first time going to the Final Four, and I enjoyed such great talent. These young ladies can ball out, right? And I'm looking forward to next week having conversations with them. They were just beautiful in spirit, man. They competitive on the court, but they just had beautiful spirits. And I'm sure they're doing, besides basketball, they're doing so many wonderful things. But again, thank you very much. I love you guys, man. I say this each and every week, right? If the Lord bless you to wake up tomorrow, make tomorrow your masterpiece. Love you and God bless you.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Lowe's More, the Blueprint Podcast. Stay connected and follow us at our website, www.lowesmore.com. That's LOWESMOORE.com. You can also join the discussion on Twitter at Lowe's More and on Facebook at Lowe's More Jr. As always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast to stay fully up to date with everything we're up to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
What they teaching is a joke. I ain't buying it like I'm broke. Insufficient funds for insignificant.